Welcome to our engaging and informative channel. I am Natalia, your host, and today I am absolutely delighted to have Elena here with me, a truly special guest. We're going to host a comprehensive and insightful podcast, delving into a very important and meaningful conversation that we believe will be incredibly valuable to all our viewers and listeners. I'll share my story as openly as possible, talk about my life, and explain how channeling helped me change my life in so many different ways. Welcome, Elena. Thank you for coming.
Hello, Natasha. I'm very glad to be here for this interview. I'd like to ask you a few questions about channeling, about your special ability. Could you please tell us how you first discovered it for yourself?
The first time it happened was quite spontaneous. At that time, I was living in Australia and I was almost 35 years old. At that time, my main problem was that I couldn't get pregnant and have a child. And I really wanted that. And for the first time, I encountered something like meditation. I had only attended 2 meditations in my life. In the first meditation, there was a visualization of a desire. I visualized that I had given birth to a sweet little girl, a blonde. And the second meditation was an English sound healing session with music. And there, you had to go deep inside yourself and ask an important question in order to get an answer. And I didn't just get one answer. I ended up having a whole dialogue. At the time, I didn't understand who it was with. I thought maybe it was with God. I had no knowledge at all about the structure of the subtle planes. That was actually only my second experience with meditation in my life. In that dialogue, I made an agreement that everything would work out with my pregnancy if I promised certain things regarding my future child. Specifically, I promised to give complete freedom in every aspect of life and never to impose my own opinions. And indeed, soon after, I became pregnant, and that's when my journey began, because I truly started to believe that something else exists, something beyond this reality. And later I realized that it was a genuine channeling experience. At first I thought this was completely normal, that everyone who was at the meditation also had such a dialogue. But when I asked the friends I was with, they said nothing like that happened to them. That was my first experience with channeling, and it was truly magical. And that's how my journey began, towards discovering my abilities and secret knowledge. Later, I realized that the dialogue was not with someone else, but specifically with my daughter Milana. She made an agreement with me and then arranged everything from there. At least that's how I see the situation.
Amazing. That's a very interesting story. And what happened next after Milana was born?
When I was pregnant, I had so much energy and enthusiasm. I decided to start my first business. It's a business that I still run to this day, immigration to Australia, New Zealand. When I had already given birth, there was a small child, long awaited, a newborn business, and I needed to draw a lot of energy, although by nature I'm not a particularly energetic person. Since childhood, as far back as I can remember, it's always been hard for me to get up in the morning. In the mornings, ever since school and university, I was always a bit sluggish. There was always this lack of energy. Although I always had a lot of plans and ambitions, so I started looking for sources of energy, and that's how I came to energy practices. This happened in Australia, where a very popular school existed then and still does now, classic Reiki. I started practicing Reiki, and that was my first experience of consciously engaging with and working with energy. I began working on myself and also worked with my newborn daughter. I had a very strong intention to give birth to a healthy child. By the way, I want to mention that in fact, now she's 9 years old and she hardly ever gets sick. She's growing up without any medication. And it's not that I refuse to give her medicine. There's simply no need. She really is a very healthy child, and she's been that way since birth. Through energy practices, I realized that these practices are a powerful tool, especially not so much for treatment, but for prevention. When you initially tune the body for health, the results are amazing. And of course, I started using this for myself as well. For the first 5 years or so, I used everything I learned only for myself.
Could you please tell us about healing? Are you able to practice it? What are some of its particular features?
Healing is a very interesting topic. In general, I really like the approach they have in the West. That is, in the Russian-speaking world, it's common to call it alternative medicine or non-traditional medicine. But in English, at least in Australia, they call it complementary healing. And what does that mean? There is a fundamental difference between medicine and healing, or healing in general. Actually, our body, at its core, has a built-in self-healing mechanism. That is, our body can heal itself. And in principle, it is capable of being healthy and even not getting sick at all. And so healing is aimed at tuning this mechanism and enhancing it, for example, with additional energy, so that the body heals itself. Whereas medicine deals with specific diagnoses, with some kind of treatment, whether medicinal or something else like surgical, it specifically works with the illness itself. And healing is, in part, you could say, a form of a healthy lifestyle, or it can be an additional kind of support for a person to help them heal. You could say that a person heals themselves and the healer helps them.
And how did you discover your ability for clairvoyance?
Yes, that's a very interesting question. Thank you for it, Elena. My abilities began to open up very strongly. After that first channeling experience, especially when I started working with energies, I started with Reiki, as I mentioned, my abilities really began to develop. But then I started to study what was also popular in the English-speaking world. At that time, I was living in Australia, and there was a popular school called Theta Healing Theta. Healing works with more subtle energy, with mental energy. And working with mental energy also gave me a big push, as did meditation. Connecting with my higher self, as they call it, gave me a very rapid opening of abilities. And quite quickly, I developed clairvoyance. I remember we were doing a session with friends, working on accepting our femininity, our feminine power. And after that, my clairvoyance spontaneously opened up, and I was shown an entire series with many episodes. It was about women, starting from ancient times, the Middle Ages, some royal palace interiors, Slavic themes, Scandinavian themes. There were all sorts of different stories in this series. And the whole storyline was about women and the kind of power women of the past had when they possessed magic, when they wielded the art of healing. When they had a very strong connection with the energy of the earth, women literally ruled this world, and they did it without aggression. They did it very gently. They did it simply by inspiring men. You could say that men would do absolutely anything for these women. And in this way, through some kind of whispering in the ear, through gentle conversations, in this way they simply shaped history. This really amazed me, and it opened up a whole new world to me, that femininity is not weakness, it's a great strength. And that you can achieve things not only actively by pursuing your goals, but also in a more passive way. Energy practices, channeling, meditation, magic, all of these are feminine tools for achieving goals. Without aggression, without strain, without forcing the situation. That is, you can chase after something or you can attract it. This is the feminine approach. And I can't say, by the way, that clairvoyance is exactly my strong suit. I have other abilities that are more developed, but sometimes I do see certain things. When it's necessary, I can look into a situation, see the storyline. For example, I study my past incarnations a lot, but here it's not channeling anymore, it's more of a tool, regression. I've reviewed many episodes from my past lives. And there too, I drew a lot of inspiration and a lot of information useful for my work.
An amazing story. If only all women could master and remember this knowledge now, how to govern the world through feminine energy, that would be wonderful.
That's one of my goals. In fact, I teach this in my programs. To do this, you need to restore your connection with the earth and at least start working with energy practices in order to gradually restore this power that has been forgotten over the years.
Tell us about mediumship. How did you discover it in yourself?
There was a reason, unfortunately, a rather sad one. I discovered mediumship after my mother's death because I had a strong desire to continue communicating with her after she passed away. By that time, well, on the bright side, I already possessed secret knowledge. I already knew that. People don't disappear, they move on to another plane, they remain in this world on a subtle level. And I continued communicating with her. But when I started practicing and developing this ability, I wanted to go further. In general, my training in mediumship is connected to a very interesting period in my life, my time living in Bali. I spent 1 year of my life in Bali. It's a very fascinating culture, and their strength lies precisely in working with the spirit world with the subtle plane. After all, in their culture, they have an entire cult dedicated to communicating with ancestors. They make offerings every day, little baskets which they put out and light incense sticks. It's not just for show. They make offerings and treats for their ancestral spirits, for others, and for the spirits of nature. There is an entire system to which Balinese people devote 30% of their time. It's a daily practice, and for them, it's truly a priority. They won't work, go anywhere, or travel until they've done all of this. And because this culture is present on the island, first of all, it's a very convenient place to practice mediumship. Because the spirits, well, let's say, are used to this. And secondly, it's as if the boundary between the subtle world and the physical world is thinner there, partly due to those incense sticks that are always burning everywhere. This also allows the spirits to become a little denser and come closer to our world. That's why it's easier to communicate with them. I remember my friend came to visit me and we were making candles on the terrace, lighting incense sticks as well. And we communicated not only with deceased loved ones, but also with teachers, including ascended masters who no longer incarnate. These are figures like Jesus, Buddha. These are the gods of ancient Egypt, Merlin as well, with whom I have a very special connection. And so I realized that you can use mediumship for this, including to learn and to receive knowledge that is no longer available in this world, let's say knowledge for which there are no books or information left. But all genius things, people have always channeled from the subtle realms. And that's where I mastered this skill. It's a very interesting skill and we practice it. In our club, we have a club for psychics. Once a week, we do different activities, including mediumship, and we train. You can ask very interesting questions and really receive some new information. You can communicate with the deceased. You can communicate with your soul relatives from the subtle realm. This practice offers a lot of possibilities. And
what is your superpower?
Well, I actually have probably 2 superpowers. I'll tell you about one first. My superpower is transformational trance immersions. I call them practices. I also discovered this ability in myself quite suddenly. My first products were launched on the topic of relationships, and I chose, it would seem, simple subjects to work through, relationship topics. And that's when I discovered that my voice, my energy, puts people into a trance. And through this trance state, something incredible happens. Fast, incredibly powerful transformations that surpassed absolutely everything I had tried before. Perhaps this is my superpower from past lives, a skill I've developed, because I can very quickly bring people into such a state, and the effect is really great. I conduct these kinds of practices in our club twice a week. We cover different topics. Our theme changes from month to month. But the latest ability I discovered is that through such immersions, through these kinds of practices, I can help people unlock their superpowers. That's what I use them for the most. My second superpower is connected to magic. This is also an innate quality of mine. I know that magic has a very bad reputation. Nevertheless, I can say that I don't do rituals, folk magic, wax pourings, or candle work. I have my own innate ability. I can clearly see any magical influences, and I remove them very effectively without any tools or rituals. I remove them simply with my own power. And those who participate in our club have seen it. They've seen many times how I do it and how it affects people and what amazing results follow. People make breakthroughs in their lives just because I remove these influences from them. And
could you please tell us where you studied?
I studied, but I have, let's say, a regular education. I have a degree in linguistics. By the way, I know it very well. The English language, well, not just very well, it's like my second native language. My second degree was in economics and business. My third education is Australian, in the field of immigration law, Australian immigration legislation, which relates to my first business. As for channeling and super abilities, I studied at the Institute of Noetic Sciences in the USA, specializing in scientific channeling in English, of course. And I studied at the London School of Clinical Hypnosis. I am a qualified hypnotherapist, and this education gave me the opportunity to understand how some of my abilities, which I already had, actually work. But this deep understanding, including through the mind, is very useful. It helps me put my abilities into words and build a methodology to explain logically how it works, because for those who are logical, in fact, I myself am logical. As you can see, I'm also an economist. I worked in an office for many years in various very logical jobs. So for logical people, it's very important not just to show, but to explain. I plan to continue my education further. I enjoy studying in English because there is a lot of innovative information available there. There, a lot of research is being conducted, and I study all of that as well. For example, even the Reiki Association of Australia, they conduct a lot of scientific experiments, and they have partially proven the benefits of Reiki practice, and they continue to provide evidence. The same goes for ions in the USA. They have already proven many facts and continue to do so, and I hope to see even more of this in my lifetime. The day when science and esoteric knowledge, superhuman abilities merge into one and begin to complement each other, I think that will be just awesome.
Please tell us about your project, the Higher School of Extrasensory Perception.
I started this project in 2022. As usual for me, it came through channeling. At that time, I had a project about relationships, and honestly, I liked it and it was very useful, but I was told that this was not what I was supposed to be doing, that I had a different purpose. And I was asked to start a school of extrasensory perception. And this is the task that was given to me. You could say my teachers from the subtle realms asked me to gather gifted people who have been on the path of developing their super abilities for more than one lifetime. People who are unusual, people who possess a special gift. So my task is to bring such people together and help them specifically to unlock these abilities and accept them, and to learn how to use them for the benefit of themselves and others. This is my task. And this project has been running for 3 years now. There have already been quite a few groups. We launched courses on extrasensory perception, super abilities, channeling, and other more complex projects like Druid magic. I have a very long fundamental course on classical Druid magic. And besides, I rarely mention this, but I also have an English language project, and I have students there as well. There we study healing, the same energy practices, channeling, and super abilities. And this year I made the decision that I want to unite my projects and create a single unified academy of super abilities. It will be an international academy of super abilities, since in addition to all my other merits, I also know very well English. I'm the kind of person who can bring this knowledge together. I can translate important documents, some crucial knowledge, books. And I also plan to do this as part of the project so that this information, this knowledge will be available without borders and without language barriers.
And what is channeling? Is it truly a gift, or can simply everyone actually learn it?
Well, the general opinion, even internationally I would say, is that first of all, the definition of channeling is the ability to receive and transmit energy and information beyond time and space. I like my own definition, which is that channeling is the ability to receive energy and information from subtle planes and transmit it. By the way it is transmitted can vary. It can be a kind of telepathic transmission at a distance, for example, in practice. It can be a book, or it can simply be speaking when people talk in a flow state. It can also be art, or it can be science. There are many examples of scientific discoveries that were made through channeling. So the general international opinion now is as follows. It is that everyone has these abilities, at least potentially, but they are expressed to very different degrees. That is to say, for some individuals, it might be just a rather vague sense of intuition, while for others, it could manifest as vivid images, or even an entire flowing stream of detailed information, or clear and distinct bodily sensations, or even whole phrases, or perhaps even music that can be clearly heard and perceived. This can manifest in many different ways, and there are people who can channel huge streams of information. Some people need to enter a trance for this, which is called trance channeling. In such cases, it's usually recorded on audio to listen to later. Some can enter this state while being in a fairly normal waking state. I'm also convinced that this ability can be developed, and it can also be unlocked, because what blocks our ability are so-called psycho-emotional blocks that exist at the level of our astral or energetic body. This is something I work with a lot, and when I remove these blocks, I've done this many times with groups, these abilities open up. Moreover, for each person, they unfold in their own way, and everyone has their own unique abilities.
Natasha, thank you very much for the interview. It was very interesting and informative.
Thank you, Elena, for this conversation. See you again soon next time.
Thank you.